The message arrived at exactly 0800 hours Earth Standard Time, simultaneously across every military frequency, every diplomatic channel, and every civilian news network humanity operated. It was designed to be impossible to miss, impossible to ignore. Admiral Rebecca Taylor was halfway through her morning coffee when the alert sounded. She set down her cup carefully, watching as a translation appeared on her office screen at Earth Defense Command headquarters. People of Earth, the message read in cold, formal text. The Crithian Dominion hereby claims all territory currently occupied by your species. You are granted 30 standard days to submit your unconditional surrender. Failure to comply will result in the complete military conquest of all human worlds. This is your only warning. Rebecca read it 3 times, her expression never changing. She'd been in the military for 42 years, worked her way up from enlisted to admiral, and she'd seen her share threats. But this was different. Admiral? Colonel James Wright stood in her doorway, his face pale. He was holding a tablet that showed long-range sensor data. "Ma'am, you need to see this." Rebecca gestured him in, and James put the tablet on her desk. The images made even her experienced composure crack slightly. Ships, thousands of them, assembling at the edge of human space in a formation so large it looked like a wall of steel. "How many?" she asked quietly. 10,000 warships, James replied, and his voice shook just slightly on the number. Command confirmed it 3 times. 10,000, Admiral. That's the largest invasion force in recorded galactic history. Every intelligence agency across 100 worlds is scrambling to understand what the Crithians are planning. Rebecca pulled up the threat assessment files. The Crithians were a warrior culture, had been expanding aggressively for over a century. They'd conquered 47 star systems, enslaved or eliminated the native populations, and they'd never lost a major military engagement. Their technology was advanced, their tactics brutal, their reputation terrifying. And they were giving her 30 days to surrender everything. "We have 214 operational warships," James said, answering the question Rebecca hadn't asked yet. "Even at full deployment, even with every ship we have, we'd be outnumbered almost 50 to 1. The math doesn't work, Admiral." "I know how to count, Colonel," Rebecca said, but there was no heat in her voice. She was thinking, her mind working through options, strategies, political considerations. "Ma'am, we've already received offers of assistance." James pulled up diplomatic messages flooding in from across the galaxy. The Valorian Alliance is offering 200 ships. The Nexary Collective can spare 80. Even the Thaxians are offering to send a battle group, and they've hated us since the trade dispute 5 years ago. Rebecca raised an eyebrow at that. "The Thaxians want to help us? That's interesting." "Everyone's terrified," James explained. "The Crithians won't stop with Earth. If they can take us down, they'll just keep expanding. Half the galaxy sees this as their problem too. How generous of them to suddenly remember we exist," Rebecca said dryly. She pulled up the calculations. Even with Allied support, the numbers were bad. 300 additional ships would help, but against 10,000, it would just mean more casualties when the inevitable happened, unless they took a different approach. "Send responses to all our allies," Rebecca ordered. "Thank them for their concern and their offers, but decline all military assistance." James stared at her like she'd suggested surrendering. "Admiral, with respect, we need every ship we can get. Declining help is—" "We're sending the Prometheus," Rebecca interrupted calmly. The silence that followed was heavy. James just looked at her, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to process what she'd just said. "The Prometheus," he finally managed. "That's 1 ship, Admiral. 1 ship against 10,000. I don't understand." "You're not cleared for the full specifications," Rebecca replied. She pulled up classified files that made James's eyes go wide when he saw the security clearance required just to view the headers. "But I'll tell you this much. The Prometheus wasn't built to fight a war, James. It was built to end one." "1 ship?" James repeated, still struggling with the concept. "The entire galaxy is going to think we've lost our minds." "Let them think that," Rebecca said. She began composing the official diplomatic response, her fingers moving steadily across the keyboard. Captain Jack Morgan and his crew know what they're doing. The Prometheus is exactly the right tool for the situation. And if it's not, if this doesn't work... Rebecca paused, meeting his eyes directly. Then we'll have learned something valuable about the limits of the technology. But it will work, Colonel. I've seen the simulations. I've reviewed the test results. The Prometheus will end this invasion before it begins. The responses went out within the hour. Earth's allies received polite thanks, but firm rejections of their military aid. The Galactic Council received a formal notification that Earth was handling the situation internally, and the Crithians received a simple message. Your threat has been acknowledged. We are dispatching the HSS Prometheus to resolve this matter. The galactic community reacted with complete confusion. Intelligence agencies across 100 worlds immediately began searching for information about this mysterious Prometheus. Was it a new superweapon? Some kind of experimental dreadnought? A diplomatic vessel for negotiations? Nobody could find anything. The ship's specifications were buried under security classifications so deep that even Allied intelligence services couldn't penetrate them. The Crithians, meanwhile, responded to Earth's message with open mockery. Lord Commander Thex, leader of the invasion force, broadcast his laughter across public channels. One ship, he announced to anyone listening. The humans send one ship against my 10,000. This is proof of their weakness, their delusion. We will crush this Prometheus, and then we will take their worlds. But while the Crithians laughed and the galaxy scrambled for information, a few older civilizations, species that have been exploring space for thousands of years, noticed something disturbing. Earth's military hadn't mobilized. Their fleet remained docked at stations across human space. Soldiers stayed on regular leave rotations. Defense platforms operated at normal readiness levels, not the heightened alert you'd expect before an invasion. It was like Earth wasn't preparing for war at all, like they knew something nobody else did. The question spread through every diplomatic channel, every military briefing, every news broadcast across the galaxy. Why only one ship? What could one vessel possibly do against the largest invasion force in history? Nobody had an answer, but in 27 days, the entire galaxy would learn why Earth's confidence wasn't misplaced. It was terrifyingly well-founded. 27 days after the Crithian ultimatum, the HSS Prometheus arrived at the designated engagement zone. Every sensor array in the sector was pointed at it. Every species with a stake in this conflict, watching to see what humanity's answer would be. Captain Jack Morgan stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, hands clasped behind his back, watching the view screen as the Crithian fleet came into view. He was 48 years old, had been in the Navy for 26 years, and he'd spent the last 5 training specifically for this moment. Still, seeing 10,000 warships spread across space like a wall of metal and weapons made his stomach tighten. That's a lot of ships, Lieutenant Amy Brooks said quietly from the sensor station. She was young, just 29, but she was the best sensor operator in the fleet. Right now, she was tracking the Crithian formations with professional precision, even if her voice carried a hint of nervousness. It is, Jack agreed, but remember what Admiral Taylor told us. Numbers don't mean anything if they can't touch us. Incoming scans, Amy reported. Multiple sources. They're trying to figure out what we are. Active sensors from at least 2,000 vessels. Let them scan all they want, Jack replied calmly. They won't find what they're looking for. The Prometheus was enormous by any standard, 3 times the size of the largest Crithian dreadnought. But unlike those warships that bristle with weapons and armor, the Prometheus looked almost peaceful. Its hull was smooth, covered in strange panels and ports that conventional sensors couldn't identify. The overall design looked more organic than military, like something grown rather than built. What the Crithian scans weren't finding was weapons. They looked for missile batteries. Nothing. Energy cannons. Nothing. Rail gun systems. Nothing. The armor plating was minimal, barely enough to protect against micrometeorites. The power signatures were low, nothing like the massive reactors you'd expect on a warship. No shield generators. No tactical computer networks. No weapon targeting systems. To every military analyst looking at the data, the Prometheus appeared to be exactly what Lord Commander Thex had mocked it as, an oversized cargo hauler. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're being hailed. Audio only. It's Lord Commander Thex himself." Jack straightened slightly. "Put him through." The Crithian commander's voice filled the bridge, harsh and aggressive even to the translation software. The Crithians had vocal cords designed for a thicker atmosphere, which made them sound perpetually angry to human ears. "I am Lord Commander Thex of the Crithian Dominion," the voice announced. "I demand to speak with whoever commands this insult of a vessel." "Good morning, Commander," Jack replied, keeping his tone polite and professional. "This is Captain Jack Morgan of the human systems ship Prometheus. How can I help you today?" There was a pause, as if Thex hadn't expected politeness. "Help me? Help me? You were given 30 days to surrender your pathetic species. Instead of compliance, instead of wisdom, you send me this cargo hauler. One unarmed ship. Is this a joke?" "The Prometheus isn't a cargo ship, Commander," Jack corrected mildly. "She's a specialist vessel designed for a very specific purpose." "Specialist in what? Humiliating yourself? Running away?" Thex's laugh crackled through the speakers, sharp and mocking. "Your time has expired. Human, transmit your unconditional surrender immediately, or I will reduce your ship to atoms and proceed to burn your homeworld." Jack looked at his tactical display. 10,000 ships. The largest invasion force in galactic history. All of them powering up weapons, preparing to fire. All of them confident in their overwhelming superiority. He almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Commander Thex," Jack said calmly, "I'm afraid I'll have to decline your generous offer. Please withdraw your fleet from this sector and return to Crithian space. You have 60 minutes to begin your retreat." The silence that followed was absolute. On the Prometheus bridge, every crew member went still, barely breathing. They'd trained for this moment, rehearsed these exact words, but hearing their captain deliver an ultimatum to 10,000 warships still felt surreal. Then Thex's laughter erupted from the speakers, louder and harsher than before. It went on for a full 15 seconds before he could speak again. "You," Thex managed between laughs. "You are giving me an ultimatum? One cargo ship against my armada? 10,000 warships against your pathetic vessel? Tell me, Captain Morgan, please enlighten me. What exactly do you think you can do?" Jack glanced at Commander Tom Rodriguez, his chief engineer. Tom gave a small nod. All systems were ready. Then Jack looked at Lieutenant Amy Brooks at sensors. She confirmed with a thumbs up that the containment fields were stable. Everything was in place. "We're not here to fight you, Commander," Jack said, his voice carrying a weight that made his crew sit up straighter. "We're here to convince you that invading human space will be the worst mistake your species has ever made." "And how?" Thex drawled, his amusement clear even to the translation. "Do you plan to accomplish this miracle? With what? Your invisible weapons? Your non-existent fleet?" Jack smiled, though Thex couldn't see it. "By showing you why Earth only needed to send one ship. By demonstrating that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the biggest gun or the most ships. Sometimes it's the right technology, applied correctly. Enough of this nonsense." Thex's voice turned cold. "I gave you a chance to surrender with honor. You've wasted it with your primitive bravado. All ships, target that vessel. Prepare to fire on my command." On the tactical display, Jack watched as 10,000 weapon systems locked onto Prometheus. Enough firepower to vaporize a moon. All of it pointed at his ship. "Commander Rodriguez," Jack said calmly, "status on the containment systems?" "All field stable, sir," Tom replied from engineering. "Power levels optimal. We're ready when you are." "Good." Jack opened the fleet-wide internal channel. "All hands, this is the captain. We are about to demonstrate why the Prometheus exists. Follow all safety protocols, exactly as trained. This is what we prepared for. This is why we're here." He looked back at the view screen, at the Crithian fleet preparing to fire, at 10,000 ships that thought they were about to win an easy victory, at a commander who had no idea what was about to happen. Commander Thex, Jack said, I'm going to give you one final chance. Order your fleet to stand down and withdraw. Do this, and everyone goes home alive. Refuse, and I'll be forced to show you what the Prometheus was built for. I will enjoy watching your ship burn human. Thex replied. All ships fire. Jack nodded to himself. They'd tried. They'd given every possible warning. What happened next was on the Crithians. Commander Rodriguez, he said quietly, release the swarm. Releasing the swarm, aye, sir. Deep within the Prometheus, in containment chambers that had taken 5 years to design and build, the locks disengaged. Throughout the ship's hull, hundreds of ports opened simultaneously, and something emerged that would change warfare forever. The first thing the Crithian sensors detected was a cloud, a gray fog pouring from the Prometheus through hundreds of ports across its massive hull. It spread through space like smoke, expanding rapidly, moving with clear purpose toward the nearest Crithian ships. What is that? Lord Commander Thex demanded, staring at his tactical display. The cloud was growing fast, billowing outward in all directions. Some kind of chaff system? Electronic countermeasure? His sensor officer was frantically scanning the phenomenon, and what he found made no sense. Commander, the readings. They're showing the cloud is composed of individual particles. Billions of them, each one microscopic. They appear to be machines, sir. Machines? Thex's voice dripped with contempt. They're throwing tiny robots at us. Fire. All batteries. Destroy that cloud before it reaches our ships. 300 Crithian warships open fire simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma bolts, kinetic missiles. Enough concentrated firepower to vaporize a small asteroid. The weapons lanced through space, crossing the distance in seconds, and struck the expanding gray cloud. Nothing happened. The energy beams passed straight through, as if the cloud wasn't even there. The plasma dissipated harmlessly. The missiles exploded, but the cloud simply flowed around the blast zones and continued spreading. Impossible. Thex slammed his fist on his command console. What kind of defense is this? All ships, continuous fire. Burn that thing out of space. Half the Crithian fleet opened up, pouring weapons fire into the gray fog. The void lit up with energy explosions and the brilliant flashes of 1,000 weapons firing at once. It was beautiful and terrifying, a display of raw military power that should have destroyed anything in its path. The cloud didn't even slow down. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Jack Morgan watched his tactical display with professional calm. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was monitoring the swarm status, her console filled with data streams showing the positions and conditions of billions of individual nanobots. Swarm density reaching optimal levels, Amy reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were controlling. Replication rate is nominal. No degradation in control signals. All nanobots responding to commands. Keep them on defensive protocols, Jack ordered. I want this clean. No casualties. We're here to stop a war, not start a massacre. Yes, sir. Swarm is maintaining non-lethal parameters. Life support systems are flagged as off-limits. The gray cloud reached the first Crithian destroyer. The ship's captain screamed orders to his crew, throwing the vessel into evasive maneuvers. But the swarm was faster. It enveloped the destroyer in seconds, covering the hull like a living blanket. And then everything stopped. The destroyer's engines cut out instantly. Every light went dark. Weapons powered down. Communications died. The life support systems flickered but stayed online, the only systems the swarm had been programmed to preserve. The ship became a dead hulk, floating in space, its crew alive but trapped in the dark. Report! The Crithian captain shouted into the darkness of his bridge. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in dim red. What just happened? Why are we dead in space? His engineer checked the diagnostics and felt his blood run cold. Sir, the hull integrity is intact. No breaches. But the systems, everything's offline. The power conduits, the computer cores, the engine assemblies. It's like they just stopped existing. What the engineer couldn't see, what no organic eye could see, was what was happening at the molecular level. The nanobots were doing exactly what they'd been designed to do, taking things apart. Each microscopic machine was a sophisticated tool, capable of breaking molecular bonds, separating materials, disassembling complex machinery into its component atoms. They weren't destroying the ship. They were harvesting it, breaking down the metals, the composites, the ceramics, the plastics. Every piece of technology that made a modern warship function was being carefully, methodically taken apart, and the materials weren't being wasted. Each nanobot that consumed enough material split into two. Then those two split into four. The swarm was growing exponentially, using the Crythian fleet's own mass as fuel. The second ship went dark, then the third and fourth at the same time. The swarm was moving faster now, spreading to the Crythian formation like a plague. Evasive action! Thex screamed. All ships maximum speed. Get away from that cloud. Several destroyers tried to run, their engines burning at maximum output. They made it perhaps 5 kilometers before the swarm caught them. The gray fog was everywhere now, moving through space faster than the ships could flee. One by one, they went dark. Ramming speed, a Crythian cruiser captain shouted in desperation. If we can't shoot it, we'll crash through it. 3 heavy cruisers accelerated directly into the cloud at full speed. They penetrated maybe 50 meters before their systems failed. Momentum carried the dead ships through to the other side, but they were just drifting hulks now, powerless and helpless. Self-destruct, another captain ordered. If I'm going down, I'm taking this thing with me. He triggered the sequence, and nothing happened. The self-destruct systems were already offline, disabled by nanobots that had worked faster than his crew could react. 20 ships dead. 50. 100. The numbers kept climbing. Commander Tom Rodriguez monitored the swarm's growth from engineering, watching as billions became trillions. Sir, the replication rate is accelerating. Each disabled ship provides enough material to double our current numbers. At this rate, we'll have enough nanobots to disable the entire Crythian fleet in approximately 4 hours. Acknowledged, Jack replied. He opened a channel to the Crythian fleet. Lord Commander Thex, this is Captain Morgan. You're seeing what happens when you ignore warnings. This can still end peacefully. Order your ships to stand down and withdraw. Never. Thex's voice was ragged now, the confidence completely gone. What have you done? What is that abomination? That, Jack said calmly, is humanity's answer to overwhelming force. You brought 10,000 ships to conquer us. We brought the ability to turn your fleet into scrap metal without killing a single one of your people. Every ship we've disabled, the crews are alive. We made sure of that. 500 ships gone. 1,000. 1,500. Across the galaxy, observers watched in stunned horror. Military analysts were frantically revising their understanding of warfare. Because how do you fight an enemy you can't shoot? How do you defend against something that uses your own ships to grow stronger? The swarm continued its patient, relentless work, and Captain Jack Morgan prepared to make his final offer. 6 hours into the engagement, 3,000 Crythian warships floated dead in space. Their crews had abandoned ship in escape pods, each one programmed by the nanobots to eject safely before life support failed completely. Thousands of small pods drifted among the hollow metal skeletons that used to be proud warships. Not a single Crythian had died, but their mighty fleet was becoming a graveyard. Captain Jack Morgan stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the tactical display and feeling the weight of what they were doing. This wasn't like normal combat. There was no adrenaline, no fear of incoming fire, no desperate maneuvering. Just the cold, methodical process of watching the swarm do its work. Sir, Lieutenant Amy Brooks said quietly, we're receiving emergency transmissions from the escape pods. Some of them are running low on supplies. They've been out there for hours. Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. Contact the Galactic Rescue Services. Transmit the coordinates of all pods. Make sure they know these people need help. Already done, sir. They're dispatching recovery ships now. That was something, at least. The Crythians would be rescued, returned home, alive. That had been the whole point of this demonstration. to end the threat without the body count that usually came with war. But looking at those 3,000 dead ships, Jack wondered if there was a difference between killing someone and destroying everything they'd built. The Crithians hadn't died, but their careers were over, their fleet destroyed, their pride shattered. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Wideband. I want every Crithian ship to hear this." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, sir." Jack took a breath. "Lord Commander Thex, this is Captain Morgan. We've been at this for 6 hours now. 3,000 of your ships are disabled. Your crews are safe in escape pods, but they're running out of supplies. This can end right now. Order your remaining ships to withdraw to Crithian space, and I will recall the swarm immediately. No more ships lost. No more crews stranded. Just go home." The response took almost a minute. When Thex finally spoke, his voice sounded like it belonged to a different person. All the arrogance was gone, replaced by something raw and broken. "What have you done to us?" Thex asked, and he sounded lost. "What is that thing? How is this possible?" "It's nanotechnology," Jack replied honestly. "Microscopic machines, billions of them, programmed to disassemble ships at the molecular level. We developed it as a defensive measure against exactly this kind of situation. Overwhelming force aimed at conquest. You call this defense?" Thex's voice cracked. "You're destroying my fleet." "We're disassembling your ships," Jack corrected gently. "There's a big difference, Commander. We could have met you with our own fleet, could have fought ship to ship, watched thousands die on both sides, turned this sector into a debris field full of bodies. Instead, we chose to remove your ability to wage war without killing anyone. Every single member of your crews is alive. That's more mercy than you were planning to show Earth." The silence that followed was heavy. On the observation platform scattered around the engagement zone, representatives from dozens of species were having emergency meetings, their voices overlapping in panic and argument. "This is an abomination," the Sienna ambassador was shouting. "The humans have created a weapon that makes all conventional warfare obsolete. Do you understand what this means?" "It means they won without casualties," a Valorian delegate countered. "The Crithians brought 10,000 ships to wage a war of conquest. The humans stopped them without killing anyone. How is that not preferable to traditional war?" "Because it's too powerful," another voice argued. "What happens when humanity decides to use this against us? Against anyone who disagrees with them?" Ambassador David Palmer, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, fielded the incoming complaints with practiced patience. He was 56, had been in diplomatic service for 30 years, and he'd never seen the council this agitated. "Let me ask you all something," David said, his voice cutting through the noise. "If the Crithians had attacked your home worlds with this fleet, how many of your people would have died? Thousands? Millions? We've ended this invasion with 0 casualties. 0. I'm having trouble seeing the moral problem here." "The moral problem," a Nexury representative sputtered, "is that you created a weapon that no conventional military can defend against. You've changed the entire balance of power." "We've removed the power," David replied. "That's different. We're not using this to conquer anyone. We're using it to defend ourselves. There's a distinction." Back in the engagement zone, the swarm continued to grow. 4,000 ships disabled. 5,000. The gray cloud was enormous now, visible to the naked eye from the observation platforms, spreading through space like a living organism. Lord Commander Thex watched his tactical display, watched the numbers climb, watched his once mighty armada reduced to floating scrap. He thought about going home in disgrace, about explaining this defeat to the Dominion leadership, about the shame of losing 10,000 ships to a single enemy vessel. Then he thought about the alternative. Staying here until every ship was gone, until his entire fleet was nothing but hollow shells and stranded crews. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" Thex asked quietly. "How do I know you'll recall that thing if we withdraw?" Jack had been expecting this question. "Because we're not trying to destroy you, Commander. We're trying to stop you. There's a difference. Pull back to Crithian space, and the swarm stops. You have my word as an officer and as a human being." "Your word," Thex repeated, and there was something bitter in his voice. The word of someone who brought this nightmare into existence. The word of someone who's kept every promise made today. Jack replied, "Your crews are alive. We targeted ships, not people. We could have killed everyone. It would have been easier. Actually, we chose not to. That should tell you something about our intentions." Thex was quiet for a long moment. 6,000 ships disabled now. 7,000. More than two-thirds of his fleet gone, and the end was inevitable. Finally, he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of total defeat. "All ships," he ordered, broadcasting to what remained of his armada. "Cease all offensive operations. Begin withdrawal to Crithian space. Maximum speed." He paused, then added quietly, "We're going home." And Captain Jack Morgan, true to his word, gave the order to bring the swarm back. The Crithian withdrawal was chaotic and desperate. Ships that arrived in perfect military formation now fled in scattered groups, engines burning at maximum power, crews terrified that the gray cloud might change his mind and come after them. But Captain Jack Morgan kept his word. "Begin swarm recall," he ordered, his voice tired but steady. "Bring them home." Lieutenant Amy Brooks initiated the recall protocols, and the effect was immediate. The massive cloud of nanobots stopped expanding, stopped pursuing, and began contracting. It flowed back toward the Prometheus like water being sucked down a drain, billions of microscopic machines responding to command with perfect precision. The process took 3 hours. 3 hours of watching the gray fog slowly disappear back into containment chambers deep within the ship. 3 hours during which the remaining Crithian ships fled as fast as their engines could carry them, not stopping, not slowing, not looking back. When the last nanobot returned containment, Lieutenant Amy confirmed it. "All units accounted for, sir. Swarm is secured. Containment field stable." Jack nodded, feeling the tension finally drain from his shoulders. Behind them, 7,000 hollowed-out Crithian warships floated in space, their structural frames intact, but everything else stripped away. They looked like skeletons, like the bones of some massive creatures picked clean. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Taylor." "Put her through," Jack said. Admiral Rebecca Taylor appeared on the view screen, and even through the video link, Jack could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "Captain Morgan, status report." "Mission accomplished, Admiral." Jack replied, "The Crithian fleet has withdrawn. 7,000 ships disabled, 0 casualties. The swarm is secured and accounted for. We're preparing to head home." Rebecca was quiet for a moment, then she nodded slowly. "Well done, Captain. The whole galaxy just watched you end the largest invasion in history without firing a single conventional weapon. Now comes the hard part, explaining to everyone why we did it this way." 6 hours later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 147 species crowded into the chamber, all of them demanding answers, explanations, reassurances. The mood was tense, frightened, angry. Admiral Rebecca Taylor stood before them, her image projected via hologram, and waited for the noise to die down. It took several minutes. Finally, the council speaker called for order, and Rebecca could begin. "You asked why I sent only one ship," she started, her voice calm and clear. "Here's your answer. We could have sent our entire fleet. We have 214 warships, well-trained crews, advanced weapons. We could have fought the Crithians ship to ship. We probably would have won, given enough time and enough support from our allies." She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. "But war is expensive. War is wasteful. War destroys resources, ruins economies, and most importantly, war gets people killed. Soldiers die. Civilians die. Entire populations can be wiped out. We wanted to avoid that. So you created that abomination instead?" The Sienna ambassador interrupted. "Self-replicating nanobots that can consume entire fleets? We created a non-lethal alternative to traditional warfare," Rebecca corrected firmly. "The Prometheus represents a different philosophy. We didn't destroy the Crithian fleet, we disassembled it. We didn't kill their soldiers. We made sure every single crew member made it to an escape pod safely. We ended what could have been a months-long war with thousands of casualties, and we did it in 6 hours with 0 deaths. But the power you've demonstrated, a Nexary representative protested, her forearms gesturing frantically. Do you not understand how terrifying this is? You can end any military conflict on your terms now. That's not defense. That's total dominance. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled up classified files and made them public for the first time. We've had this technology for 7 years. In that time, we've had disputes with the Valorian Alliance, trade conflicts with the Nexary Collective, territorial disagreements with a dozen other species. We could have used a Prometheus to win any of those disputes instantly and overwhelmingly. She let that information sink in. Instead, we negotiated. We compromised. We reached peaceful settlements. We kept the Prometheus in reserve for exactly one scenario, when someone brought overwhelming military force against us with the intention of conquest. This technology is a last resort, not a first option. The debate raged for hours. Some species demanded Earth destroy the technology immediately. Others quietly requested specifications, not for weapons but for their own defense. A few asked if Earth would intervene in other conflicts, ending wars without bloodshed. Rebecca declined all requests. The Prometheus exists to defend Earth and our allies. Nothing more. We're not going to become the galaxy's police force. A vote was called on whether to ban nanotech warfare entirely. It failed. Too many species recognized that the technology couldn't be uninvented, and banning it would just drive development underground where there were no safeguards. Instead, the Council established new guidelines. Nanotech weapons must prioritize crew survival, must only be used offensively, must be recalled immediately when the threat ends. Meanwhile, the Crithian Dominion faced its own reckoning. They'd sent the largest invasion force in history, and returned with less than a third of it, having never successfully engaged the enemy. Lord Commander Thex was stripped of his rank. Several vassal species under Crithian rule saw the defeat as weakness and declared independence. The political shockwaves would reshape that region of space for decades. 3 months later, Captain Jack Morgan stood before a press conference on Earth, answering questions from reporters representing media outlets across the galaxy. The question came up again, as he'd known it would. Captain Morgan, why did Earth send only one ship? Jack smiled. Because one ship was all we needed. Not the biggest ship. Not the most heavily armed. Just the right ship for the situation. The Prometheus wasn't sent to fight a war. It was sent to end one before it could really begin. He pulled up the statistics one more time. 10,000 Crithian ships. 7,000 disabled. 0 casualties. Conflict duration, 6 hours. We sent one ship, Jack continued, because our goal wasn't to prove we could fight. Our goal was to prove we didn't have to. That there's a better way to resolve conflicts than throwing soldiers at each other until one side runs out. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the one that kills the most people. Sometimes it's the one that makes killing unnecessary. The reporters had more questions, but the message was already clear. Humanity had changed warfare forever, not by making it more deadly, but by making it survivable. And